Okay, everybody. So, we have a new game that was sent in, and so we're going to take a look at this one. So this one's a pretty interesting one, and I'm going to go ahead and flip the board here so that we can see it from the black pieces standpoint, because our player was playing as the black pieces. This was an interesting one, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at it. Let's go ahead and get right into it with knight f3, knight f6, c4, g6, d4, bishop, g7. So we're going to see a King's Indian, and this is a very, very popular position, the King's Indian defense. So let's see what variation we're going with here. And so white plays e4. White is playing for the big pawn center. There's a couple different ways you can approach this, but this is one of the main ways. And e5 and d5. Another possibility here is we could see something like bishop e3 and maybe knight c6, and that's one of the other like main variations. But here white plays d5 immediately. Knight b to d7, 0 for castling, and knight c5. What you can do as well if you're black here, you can play a5 first, because then you could say, well, then there's no chance of b4, which is why I like this move being played after knight gets there, because you're still saying, well, there's not going to be any pawn push to hit my knight and take it out of this post on c5. And you can either do that before or after the knight gets there. Okay. h3 is played. Knight h5. So the point of knight to h5 is you want to push this f-pawn. You want to run it up the board, right? And you want to gain space on the king side, as is a normal plan in the King's Indian defense. There's two ways you can accomplish this. One is, of course, with the knight h5 as played here. The way I usually like to go is, if I play the King's Indian defense, I like to go with knight to e8 usually. That's just the way I usually will go with it, with the idea that knight h5, you do have to worry about things like this, which I just like to avoid. What happens in the game, I like to avoid that type of thing, because after knight h5, knight e1, you do have to consider, well, are you okay with the doubled pawns or not? Of course, if white gives the doubled pawns, then you do have to consider that now there's going to be the bishop pair, and so there's many imbalances to be considered. f5 immediately, and yeah, that's what you need to do. This is the normal King's Indian plan. You push your pawns on the king side, and your opponent is going to play on the queen side by marching those pawns, and that's what you have to do. Okay, and right here, one of the annotations says I was a little bit uncomfortable with how the king is now more exposed, but still felt comfortable. And yeah, you shouldn't feel any really too much discomfort from this, because if you're going to play the King's Indian defense, you have to be aware that things are going to become open on your king. And that's usually okay, because you have to think that there's not really many ways for the white pieces to usually take advantage of the weaknesses on this half of the board that you have, because usually the white pieces will play off to the other side, and they're going towards the queen side, while the black pieces are going towards the king side. So usually the king side weaknesses are not felt until later on in the game. Okay, queen e2. Alright, and let's go through here. Let's get to the next move here. Okay, rook to e1. Here we go. Here's where we can look for a nice tactic, because when I went through this game, I gave this move a question mark, and if we look through it, we can find the tactic here. So the move that black should play, let's look for it. If you want to try to pause it after f takes e4, here we go. Let's look for this this tactic here, because the move that white played is a mistake, and maybe we can find out why. So I'm going to go ahead and give the answer here. So the answer is that if we go ahead with rook takes. Oh, I jumped ahead a little bit. I'll go back here after. Okay, yeah, after rook takes f3. In this variation, we can go ahead with. Oh, my bad. If queen takes, knight takes, queen takes, and then we can take on g5. So the point is we can get rid of all the defenders of the bishop and come up with a slight material plus. So let's get back to this. So yeah, that's why you can take on e4, and if the knight takes, then you get in for that nice tactic. In the game, we had knight takes e4 was played, queen takes, and bishop to f5. So bishop f5. So the positional idea behind this move is correct, I think. You don't want to exchange queens when you have potentials to create weaknesses and attack on the king. And usually that's what you're doing in the King's Indian. So I agree with the thought process here. The downside, though, is you can play bishop takes h3, and when something like this, and you win the pawn, and so you can't. You got to be careful not to let positional considerations overlook tactical possibilities, which is a big problem I think that most players have. You know, you always have to be alert for those tactics. Okay, let's go ahead. Bishop takes h8. But, okay, maybe we missed the one version, but at least we found this version. So, so he redeemed himself a little bit here by finding another tactic, because obviously, you know that this is pinned. So, no taking the bishop. Alright, so let's go ahead. Let's keep looking through here, getting to the next part. And here, the white pieces are nice enough to fix the pawn structure. And right here is another cool fact we can look at. So this bishop here on h2 is very locked in, as you can tell. It doesn't really have too many possibilities. So that gives the black pieces a pretty serious advantage here. And I think that black's doing very good here, because this bishop is not going to be very safe. Or not very useful, rather. It's just not very useful. Okay, let's keep going. h3, okay, and maybe h3 is a bit of a mistake, but I think that the black pieces should still be winning here. Okay, and h3, because obviously there's some problems here after, you know, something like, you know, you gotta worry about, you know, rook to g3 happening, maybe. But I think that still much better for the black pieces. And let's go ahead, let's see here. Bishop takes g4. So white avoids any discoveries. Okay, at this point, it's mentioned that our player saw the opponent's rating was higher, and they didn't feel confident in their position, so they went and tried to exchange down into a draw endgame. But I think that it's not close to being drawn at all. I think that this is much better for the black pieces, and so the black pieces should be playing for a win here. Because maybe it is opposite color bishops, but this bishop is quite not doing so great here. Whereas I think it's going to be easier for this bishop to cause problems. And so I think that you shouldn't be playing for a draw quite yet. And of course, if you exchange all the pieces off, then now it starts to become a little bit more draw-like. But right here, I think that if white plays a move like a4, which I would think, you know, you can start to hit on all these pawns. I think that there's still some play left here. All right, let's go ahead though. Back to the game. Let's look at what happened. So we exchange off all the pieces, eventually down to just the bishops. And okay, let's move c6. c6. So we're trying to okay, you analyze this position, and you thought that the weakness for the white pieces is all the way over here, and it's hard to you think it's hard to exploit. Okay, and so c6 was the move that was analyzed. There is one little trick here for the white pieces. The white pieces have this little move here, c5, which is very tricky, because the point is let's say you take, then c takes d6, and this pawn could create some problems. Just give some idea of what could happen. So you got to be careful in the endgame. Even in bishops of opposite color endgames, there's still some little tricks to get some edges. Let's go ahead and let's see how this one ends. Right here is where a draw is offered, and it's accepted, and it's completely even here. It's completely done. It's over. It's drawn, and if you look, it's there's nothing really left, and it's completely equal. So a very interesting game. Some interesting play. Some chances to win, but if you felt like you were having a tough time and then you just went for a draw, I've even done things like that. One of the games I played, I realized it was hard for me to win on a practical level, and so I just said, well, it's a higher rated player, let's just take the draw. Sometimes taking the practical option is what's best, but sometimes you can always play on for a win if you really have an advantage. All right, I hope I didn't talk too long and bore everyone with my my chess analytics. So thanks for watching. See you next time. And send me your games. Tell your friends about me. If they're into chess. See you next time.